There are a couple of universally accepted beliefs about relationships that I managed to completely shatter. It's commonly thought that before getting married, a woman believes her partner will change, and the man, on the other hand, is certain that his fiancée will remain the same sweet, charming person forever. But in my case, things were quite the opposite. Harper and I had been together for nearly 2 years, and during that time, we managed to spend quality time together without any major arguments. We understood each other in a way I never had with anyone else before her. After much thought, and factoring in my 30 years of life experience, I realized it was time to make things official. So I went out and bought a ring. Naturally, Harper was ecstatic. She quickly upgraded her relationship status to fiancée and couldn't have been happier. I could almost read the excitement in her eyes. She was imagining herself stepping into this new role. A wife, someone with responsibilities and obligations, and of course, a lifestyle that would have to adjust accordingly. After all, she was 27, and it was high time to start taking things seriously. The partying would have to become a thing of the past. But then came another Friday evening, and Harper hit me with her latest idea. The girls and I are going to the club tonight. Well, here we go again. The club. I didn't say anything at first, though I wasn't thrilled about it. Still, these were the last few weeks before the wedding. A time of transition. I figured, why not let it slide? It was a special night after all. She flashed me that look. You know, the one that makes it impossible to say no. All right. I said, call me when you're done, and I'll pick you up. But no later than 2 a.m. Deal. We'll dance for a bit, then head home, she promised. There was no need for me to worry, not more than usual, anyway. I'd been to her parties a few times. They'd order some champagne, maybe, and then spend the night dancing their hearts out. That's how I pictured the night would go. A regular club outing, nothing out of the ordinary. But, as often happens in life, reality had other plans. The first inkling that something wasn't quite right came at 11:40 p.m., when my phone rang. It was still early, and I wasn't expecting anything out of the ordinary. But then I saw an unfamiliar number flash on the screen. Good evening. A cheerful male voice greeted me. Hello, I replied, slowly, trying to figure out who this might be. The man introduced himself as a police officer, and I almost fell off my chair. By the time he explained why he was calling, I was feeling lightheaded. You can come and pick up your girlfriend, the officer said, and then proceeded to tell me about Harper and 3 of her friends causing a ruckus at the club. It started with one of the patrons, and when a waitress tried to intervene, one of the girls lashed out. They got away with just a few scratches from their long, sharp nails, but the victims immediately reported the incident to the authorities. So I headed out to pick up Harper. On the drive there, I found myself wondering how embarrassed she must have been. And strangely, a small part of me thought there might be a silver lining. Maybe after such an embarrassing episode, my fiancée would finally settle down, become the person I always thought she could be. I almost convinced myself it would happen. But as it turns out, my little dreams about her change folded up neatly and died on the spot. When I arrived, I found myself in a place that was anything but girly, rushing past some guy at the front desk, hardly able to wait my turn. At first, I thought he might be one of her friend's boyfriends, but no, he mentioned my fiancée's full name. Good evening, I said, almost mechanically, as I locked eyes with the guy. We both stood there for a moment, sizing each other up, while the staff around us looked on expectantly, like they were about to watch a scene unfold. After what seemed like an eternity, the guy and I were finally filled in on the full story. It turned out that, in her drunken stupor, Harper hadn't exactly been selective with her words. When they asked who to call, she gave them 2 numbers, mine, and just in case, another one for her lover, assuming I wouldn't be available. Now that's truly the behavior of a lady, or as I prefer to think of it now, sheer laziness. The law enforcement guys, perhaps feeling a bit generous or festive, seemed to enjoy this little spectacle they had set up for themselves. They'd called both of us. Maybe they even expected a bit of drama. But there we were, me and this guy, standing in front of each other, like two stags locked in a staring contest, neither of us able to say a word, let alone throw a punch. It turned out this guy, Joseph, was Harper's ex. They'd been together before we started dating, and just before all of this mess went down, they'd reconnected. They met for lunch, caught up, and somehow ended up back in each other's company. He was a busy guy, always on the go, so they saw each other a couple of times a month, something I had no clue about. And of course, he listened to Harper talk about me, and her missing him. All he knew about me was that she had turned down my marriage proposal, which was apparently the reason for their breakup. What a punchline. After a 5-minute conversation that felt more like an awkward chess match than a heart-to-heart, Joseph and I both turned and walked away. A few more words were exchanged outside, but in the end, we parted ways without so much as a handshake. To spare Harper's parents from worrying, I called her dad, explained the situation, and asked him not to mention anything. I didn't want to have anything to do with his daughter anymore. At first, he sounded bewildered, but after a moment, he seemed to collect himself and responded, "Let her stay in the drunk tank for the night. Maybe it'll knock some sense into her." He sounded angry, and then he hung up. I drove home, my mind racing. How did I miss all of this? How did I not see the cheating? Why did I believe for even a second that she'd change? And most painfully, why did I waste 2 years of my life on a girl who clearly didn't value me in the slightest? 2 days later, Harper called, as if nothing had happened. "Are you out of your mind? He left me in that horrible place. Do you know how awful it smelled?" "I have no idea," I replied. "I don't fight with drunks in clubs." And I hung up. Barely a minute passed before she called again. "Wait, I'm sorry," I overreacted. "I'm just really stressed. Honey, how are you?" she asked, her voice suddenly soft. "I'll come over." But before she could say more, I cut her off. "How's Joseph?" I asked, my voice cold. There was a long pause before she replied. "Well, I don't." She struggled to find the right words, but she couldn't explain herself. "As I thought," I said flatly. A week later, I heard from someone we both knew that Harper had found another guy and moved in with him. Well, I can only wish him the best of luck. He's got a tough road ahead of him, learning all about betrayal, bad habits, and behavior that's anything but decent.